All right, welcome back to these fun recorded lectures that we're doing because of the coronavirus. Ooh, there we go. All right, we're going to do chapter 10 today, person-centered approach to groups. Also seeing you guys for class later tonight, so that's exciting. You guys are really familiar with this. Of course, this is Carl Rogers, and Carl Rogers is the one who came up with the person-centered approach, of course, that developed historically from non-directive and went through a series of changes until it came to person-centered, or what we call it today. He was a pioneer. He was one of the most influential theorists, if not the most influential figure in psychotherapy. He really focused on the relationship, and that was the hallmark of the contribution. Empathy, openness, positive regard. Very ahead of his time, very involved in policy, and was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. His daughter, Natalie Rogers, is the one who came up with person-centered expressive arts therapy, which some of you may remember from theory in the fall. And that is a really powerful extension of person-centered theory, um, which allows your clients to access feelings through creative expression, whether it be sculpting, painting, drawing, coloring. And I can attest to this, that it is extremely beneficial to have clients draw and use these mediums for therapy. Usually every year when we have a group proposal, someone does this theory and uses some kind of expressive arts. But in my own work with clients, it has been extremely helpful to use these mediums when necessary. Of course, Rogers, he challenged what the other theorists were doing at the time. He does not go along with giving advice, teaching. He doesn't care for diagnosis, interpretation, and you hear those are from other theories, CBT, psychoanalysis, etc. Other theories, the group leader is the teacher, the one who knows best, and he challenges that. He says, no, we're egalitarian, we're equal. Um, you don't have all the answers, that your actual group members will have all the answers, or your client. Focuses on problems over persons. So this is more of a focus on that the person has what they need to be self-actualized, to get to that point where they can heal themselves. So not heavy technique focus, more all about that relationship and energy between the two of you. The core conditions, of course, is always a test question, and are the three common core conditions for outcomes in person-centered. And of course, they're genuineness, so being genuine, being real, being congruent in who you are in each session and who you are out of session to a degree. Unconditional positive regard and acceptance. And of course, that doesn't mean just telling them things that are not accurate, or just giving them tons of praise without a reason. Okay, so that's different than just pouring it on. An accurate empathic understanding, actually having accurate empathy. Really important. It's really important, as you know, in all the theories now. We know that these really do, when you have these going for you in a therapy setting, you are able to affect change. Just backing up again, just to say a few more words about these, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Make sure you understand that being congruent is congruent with your own inner experience. What are you experiencing in the therapy session? Being real. You don't pretend to be interested. You don't fake it. If you get distracted, you say you're distracted. You're genuine. I think I've mentioned this to you, all of you in class before. Sometimes I'll go ahead and tell the client, I'm really sorry. I was up last night with a baby because, of course, I've had two babies, and I am just wiped today. So I apologize in advance if I seem out of it. Sometimes if I lose track, I say, I'm really sorry. I lost track for a second. Are you feeling like everything's okay? Are you feeling like we're on track? So checking in with the client to make sure I'm on track, they're on track, and I'm being authentic with them. I will say, like, you lost me. Hold up, take a breath. Let's go back. You totally lost me. Instead of me pretending like I understand what they're talking about and nodding and smiling when I really have no clue what they're talking about. So that is a really good example, I think, of being genuine, especially in group. You've got to be yourself. You've got to be real. You got to be like, wait, what are you talking about? Hold on, take a breath. Let's go back. You gotta be real with them, because you gotta say, are y'all feeling checked out? Are you feeling here? Is anybody else feeling like I was being disingenuous just then? You can even call your own self out and say, I was being a little disingenuous. I was actually nodding and acting like I understood when I didn't. So you can actually just be real. Just that is one of the best things you can do a group, especially substance abuse. That unconditional positive regard again is a positive not it's more about non-judgment. You accept the client how they are and where they are, but that doesn't mean you agree with what they're doing. But you accept them, you care for them, you have a positive attitude about the person, you value who they are. You roll with it. This is a great motivational interviewing. If you think about rolling with resistance, that's unconditional positive regard. I mean, you're not just challenging them, you're respecting them, you're respecting their position. And let's see, being warm, calm, genuinely kind to people. Just, I think I've told you guys this before, but my mentor Janice would always tell me, first be a human being, and I always remember that because I'll say, wait a minute, if I'm just a human interacting with a human, how would I want them to be toward me? And that helps me a lot with this one. That also gives me empathy, that I can do that for others and can really put myself in their shoes and really look at them with non-judgment and look at them with a heart. Then I can look at them and have empathy for them. Because yes, I mean, it might be they cheated on their husband, or they cheated on their wife, or they did something, they stole money, or they relapsed on meth, or I mean something far worse. And I had empathy for the sex offenders I saw. So but you're able to look deeper and know there's a reason why, and understanding that, and that gives you empathy. It helps you to be curious about what's going on with them and be accepting of them no matter where they are, and having accurate empathic understanding of them. Rogers defined empathy as the capacity to see the world of another by assuming the internal frame of reference of that person, to sense the client's private world as if it were your own, but without ever losing the as if quality. This is empathy, and it seems essential to therapy. For many group practitioners, Rogers says he regarded empathy as the most potent factor about learning and self-directed change. And I think he's right. I think we found that empathy and being there and sitting there with the client and being totally, truly empathic for them does bring about change. But it doesn't mean you're being fake. That's back to the genuineness. I think sometimes when you guys are beginning, you think this is really confusing, but I really like Kane's example here, talking about empathy. I think this really breaks it down for you because I find that it can be confusing, like I just mentioned. On 265, empathy, particularly emotionally focused empathy, helps clients pay attention to and value their experiencing, process their experience both cognitively and bodily. So accurate empathy, so understanding a client also means being able to tune in to the nonverbal cues and the disturbances in the body, and helping to bring attention to them for your client. View old experiences in new ways that promote shifts in perceptions of the self and one's view of the world, and increase confidence in their perceptions and judgment of their ability to make sound decisions and take action. It helps them feel safe and be able to learn. So I think it's really important to create that climate of trust in the group, so you can see how all of these conditions would be helpful for you no matter what theoretical orientation or what curriculum that you're using. So say when I did substance abuse group, I did MI, which is person-centered, and which is a form of person-centered, as you can see, but also did CBT, and these core conditions were always true to who I was in sessions. These were the things that I went for first. If I didn't have those, then the activities, interventions, they never seemed to go as well because I didn't have what I needed to get moving and go deeper into the group. They all work together. Da, 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 da. I'm not going to bore you guys. All right. Person-centered groups. Person-centered groups, they see therapy a little bit differently as a shared journey among group members. Of course, we talked about already. Everyone is looking for the achieving of their self-actualization. That's different for everybody. depending on where they are. And the personal characteristics of the facilitator and the quality of the relationships within the group are really important for group therapy and person-centered approaches. It is a very permissive, growth-promoting climate. You're not the expert. You're helping those clients think in this theory, that they've got what they need to do it on their own. And trust is extremely important. And you as the leader trust that the members have what they need to move forward in the way they need to. Barriers to effective therapy. That's what the header says if you guys can't see it on here. Okay, this in a nutshell is basically this. If you don't love what you're doing and you don't care about the people in your group, then you're not going to have a good group. If you don't do these things when you go into group and you don't believe in what you're doing and you don't really care about these people and you haven't found a way to really have accurate empathy for them and be a real human and not a robot, meaning appropriate self-disclosure is important, but not divulging your whole life story and all your trauma, etc. But being a human, like saying, gosh, I didn't sleep at all because the baby last night, or man, let's talk about what's going on with coronavirus. Man, it's crazy. I've been kind of stressed. How are you guys feeling? I mean, something like that. So you're not like a robot. I mean, these people that come in a group and they act like they have all the answers. I mean, try that in substance abuse group. They're going to eat you for lunch. This is actually really caring. Like if you have a bias against substance abuse or sex offenders or domestic violence and you're leading that group, they're going to feel it. You got to be authentic. You got to work through that stuff in therapy. You got to be real and you got to find your heart for this process. You got to believe in the people and you got to care. That is it. If you do that, it'll work great. All right. Clicky click. All right. Same thing. There's not a whole lot of activities in this, but you basically have to do what I just said. You've got to be focused on your presence, that you're caring, compassionate, authentic, genuine, open, positive regard. You're not caught up in techniques at all with this, like you would with CBT, pretty technique driven. This is more about being and being a human, looking at them, being human, struggling toward greater realness. And again, these are basically everything that I've already said. You got to be, work out your stuff so that you can be real with the people, figure out what your bias is and what's happening in your head. So you can be yourself and be an actual change agent for them. You have authentic feedback. You don't judge them. Speak how others are affected by others' behavior. Listen openly and sensitively to them. Let's see what else I want to say about that. As a facilitator in this group, you would encourage members to explore incongruities between their beliefs and behaviors. And what does that sound like? MI. That's because MI was, and motivational interviewing was born out of this, and I believe it's an end of this chapter. Let's see, is it back here? I know y'all are enjoying listening to these fun videos. Well, I don't know that it's actually in here, but motivational interviewing, and you see that there, right? That's an inconsistency, incongruence. You're trying, like, what they're saying, what they're doing is different, and you picking up on that, but not in a judgmental way, in a very respectful way, just like in MI. So I like this. Rogers acknowledged that anxiety and irritation among group members could result from lack of clear and shared structure. It's important to give them some autonomy in how they like to spend their time. He might open a session by saying, I wonder how you might like to spend the time in group today. Or he might say, welcome. We have set aside a certain time to meet today. I'm not sure what we'll end up talking about, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. That's a very non-directive approach. He felt that the group members had the ability to keep that going. And generally that members will reveal their behavior in a group that's unstructured. You have a basic trust in the process as a leader. You teach members to focus on themselves and their feelings. You create a climate of safety and provide support. And try to get member to member to talk. So you guys remember doing that in class with me, trying to get you guys to talk to each other at times. If you remember back that far, seems like years ago, doesn't it, guys? That we were together in class. I miss y'all. Okay. Let's move on. All right. Here is unfolding of the group process. If you can't see the top, here are 15 process patterns that occur in groups which do not follow a clear-cut sequence. So that means they could come at any point. So milling around is the lack of leader direction, which could result in confusion, frustration, and milling around, in quotes, either actually or verbally. Questions such as, who's responsible here? What are we supposed to be doing? Those are characteristics and concerns felt at this stage. Then we have resistance to personal expression or exploration. They're worried about showing you who they really are. They're fearful. Description of past feelings is 3. Disclosure of personal feelings begin despite that distrust. It deals with events outside of the group. Members tend to describe feelings in a there and then fashion instead of a here and now. Expression of negative feelings. Then people start to move into expression of here and now. So it was there and then, now it's here and now. Usually attacking the group leader, usually for not providing direction. This happens in class too. Anyway. All right, 5. Expression and exploration of personally meaningful materials. So now we're moving, right? The climate of trust is starting. People are starting to maybe take a risk and say something. You saw this happen in our group happen much more quickly, but you see how people start to take a risk and share a little bit more of themselves. Then next is immediate feelings in the group. What are you responding? How do you feel with the other one sharing? And I kind of got y'all to that at some point. Then there's some development of healing in the group. Reaching out, caring, concern for one another. Self-acceptance at the beginning of change. Participants begin to accept themselves, that they aspects of themselves that they formerly denied or distorted. They get closer to their feelings and become less rigid and more open to change. As members accept their strengths and weaknesses, they drop their defenses and welcome change. Then there's the cracking of the facades. What is that facade? What's going on under the mask? And pretenses are dropped and more communication occurs. Feedback. You're getting data back from new behaviors, insights, leading to different insights and helping people to accept aspects of themselves. Confrontation. When it's safe, people can safely confront each other in a constructive way. Then helping relationships outside the group, maybe making contacts outside the group, extension of like actually doing these behaviors outside of the group. Basic encounter, members come in closer and more direct contact with one another. So genuine person-to-person relationships can happen, whether with one another or outside in their lives because of this microcosm of the group, and then they're going and doing that somewhere else. Expression of feelings of closeness, warmth and closeness of the group, because we'll see this toward the end of this semester, which we didn't really get to, but you saw it kind of. But those group classes get super close by the end because of all of the groups we've done together and behavior changes in the group. And those are the 15 stages for him. And then we go over to Natalie here, his daughter, this expressive arts therapy that's just really, really cool. And I would say everyone, no matter what theory, can benefit from using some of this art therapy. It's a multimodal approach that integrates the mind, the body, the spirit, emotions, and all people can do it. But we get into it, we tap into a different part of the brain when we create, when we draw, we paint. And you can actually communicate the experience of a trauma or of a past event much more deeply because of the way that it's stored in the brain with an art therapy or art project. And I would say project. It doesn't. I don't mean it to be fancy. I mean, I just keep crayons and pencils in my drawer next to my couch, and when I could sense that I might be good to draw, I said, why don't you just draw it out for me? And it's amazing what you'll get. Okay, here we are. Internal conditions that foster creativity. Um, see. So the way that the internal conditions are defined, the internal conditions that foster creativity, are the openness, being open to the experience, and the internal locus of evaluation. So the external conditions that are said to foster creativity are psychological safety and psychological freedom. So the openness to experience, the first one, which is the internal condition, is a lack of defensiveness, an ability to perceive the existential moment as it is without prejudgment. This includes a lack of rigidity, openness to new concepts and beliefs, and a tolerance for ambiguity. It's being just fully open to what's happening, having a trusting experience. Most of us screen out what we do not want to see or experience. And to expand our ability to be creative, we have to be open to it rather than trying to filter it through. When we're able to listen to the response of others but are not overly concerned with their reactions, we're able to develop an internal locus of evaluation. Because most of us have a strong need for approval, gaining that sense of self-evaluation is a challenging task. We're also, most of us, very critical of ourselves. As we develop an internal locus of evaluation, we're able to give ourselves more credit and appreciation when it is due. Having a keen sense of our talents and abilities goes a long way to developing our own self-esteem. Right? Some guidelines for creative expression in groups. Be aware of your own feelings. That's been the theme of today. Know who you are. Take care of yourself. Include talking with facilitators, including talking with other facilitators. There's no right or wrong way to do art. All instructions are just always suggestions. Don't judge others and keep the general bounds of confidentiality. There are so many ways you can use a person-centered expressive arts group, especially with children, elders, cancer patients. I know that they have art therapy at the cancer clinic. Grief groups use the grief camp. They always use expressive arts. Eating disorder groups, mental disorders, victims of crimes. Person-centered approach in schools. Of course, this is a wonderful approach in schools for either teachers and for counselors, and the expressive art therapy is a wonderful medium. Other expressive techniques that are an outgrowth of this approach are art, music, and movement. So we talked about some of those already, but all of those are types of therapy, and you can incorporate those into what you're doing. At one point when I led a group, I had them do a CD of their life where they wrote all their favorite songs that expressed their life and decorated the CD cover. And that was a good example of a technique that incorporated music. We listened to some of the songs and art, and also got to a deeper meaning of what was happening in their lives. This approach for multicultural has been applied to bringing people of diverse cultures together. Being able to listen authentically to others and find that common ground is really important. And the person-centered therapist waits for the cultural context to emerge from the client. As the group movement developed, the person-centered approach became increasingly concerned with reducing human suffering, cross-cultural awareness, and conflict resolution on an international scale. You see that in the beginning of Roger's work. He was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And it was because of a lot of the work that he was doing all over the world. He used his work, his passion toward the reduction of interracial tensions. So these techniques are really powerful when working through difficult situations in meetings or in multicultural situations. Contributions and strengths is a good foundation for the initial stage of most groups. I mean, we talk about this. These person-centered techniques are fantastic, and you really just need to use them in all the groups that you do. Values based on empathy and respect for others in the group. Values and principles of this approach can be incorporated into many approaches. We know that basically they're in all the approaches. Um, Prime emphasis is placed on the group leader as a person. You are a human. You're a person. Remember Janice's quote. The philosophy can be a basic part of working with culturally diverse client populations. So when you're working with a diverse population, this is just good basics for helping to bridge that gap. The limitations, structure technique drives me crazy. This is why, guys, I'm a person-centered therapist, and you may have picked up on that. I'm very, very person-centered. I'm person-centered in somewhat in my teaching, but I needed more. And hence came EMDR as my structure. So I definitely am person-centered, but the EMDR is my structure. So I agree with the limitations. It's hard to just be and be person-centered without having a plan. So I needed more direction in my life, and you may not. Um, Clients can benefit more from working with a more directive stance. This would be really hard in like substance abuse groups, etc., because you gotta have activities. So difficult. You can do the arts activities, but difficult. More of like to me a way of being. 26 minutes. I did it. All right, over and out. I'm gonna stop it. See y'all later.